Welcome back. I only did the one countdown video yesterday due to time constraints and due to, well, we're getting closer, and then I done the Olympic video before that, which um, YouTube started flagging all my videos on this channel now, so it's really good to know that this channel is big enough that they're going to start yellowing all the little. It's supposed to be a green icon that means that it's monetized. When it turns yellow, it means you might be making you might be getting ad revenue. You might not. So it's nice to see that it's over both channels now that I get that treatment. It's kind of fantastic because they've really been flagging a lot on my main channel this week too, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. That's great. Thanks, Logan Paul. All right, back to the countdown though, because no matter what, I will not be dissuaded from doing videos. At 70, a movie that I didn't figure I would enjoy as much as I did, but because Brad Pitt was in it, I watched it, and that's Moneyball. It's a movie about baseball, though it's not a baseball movie. It has elements of it in there, but it's really about the beginnings of teams looking at advanced stats, and it's all about the Oakland A's, and it's about Billy Beane and what he did with the A's. Now, it's funny because ever since I saw this movie, I've paid close attention to the A's, and some of the advantage that you see them get in Moneyball has been negated by the fact that now advanced stats are respected league wide. Baseball is a sport now that identifies that just getting home runs and RBIs doesn't necessarily measure a player's worth, and this movie shows how that kind of started. It gets into the scouting and how the scouting works and how it doesn't work, and the obsession with a player's physique. And in the movie, they even talk about whether or not a guy has a good-looking wife or girlfriend, and uses that to decide whether or not the guy has confidence, which I thought was an odd measure and has nothing to do with baseball. So hopefully that still isn't a thing in sports. I find that so weird. All right, at 69. Oh, stop. Seriously, just grow up. Happy Gilmore. Yeah, I know, and it's an Adam Sandler movie too. Yeah, it looks intentional, but it's not. I swear. Happy Gilmore is the one movie of Adam Sandler's that's fantastic, and has damned us to some really bad Adam Sandler movies down the road. This was the first one. Now Billy Madison was okay. Billy Madison is really stupid. I mean, if you pay attention for more than 5 seconds to Billy Madison, and you're not just listening to the one-liners and paying attention to Chris Farley, and you actually try to zero in on what the movie's about, it's really dumb. But Happy Gilmore is a pretty good movie, and people say, is there a hockey movie on your chart? This is as close as it gets. Is Happy Gilmore, because what's weird is, even though at the start, if you pay attention at the start of the movie when he's talking about seeing the Boston Bruins and Terry O'Reilly, they actually show footage from a Vancouver Voodoo game. They've actually got roller hockey. It's not even ice hockey, it's roller hockey at the start of the game, which I think is hilarious. But it was filmed in Vancouver in Pitt Meadows, so that's kind of what you get when you're filming during the summer and the Canucks aren't playing. And of course, if you're filming the Canucks, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to the NHL to use that footage. And then you have to wait till the Bruins are in town, so they just film the Voodoo. And most people don't even realize what's going on at the start of the game, and they're not going to care. But it's the Vancouver Voodoo. 68. Good Will Hunting. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck showed just how fantastic they could be as actors in this movie. Robin Williams is fantastic in as well. There's a lot to like with Good Will Hunting. I know it's lower than some people might expect, but for me, and again, it's rewatchability that kind of is lower on this one than on some others. But it's a fantastic movie. I can't recommend it enough if you haven't seen it. Good Will Hunting is worth watching at the very least once, and likely more than once. And then, of course, a little Easter egg in Jay and Silent Bob 2, or Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, is that they talk about Good Will Hunting 2, a movie that never happened. But the scene that they show from Good Will Hunting 2 that they're filming, it would have been a fun movie to do, actually. It would have been hilarious. But that being said, Good Will Hunting, It's a fantastic movie on its own, and if you've seen it and you've never seen Jay and the Silent Bob Strikes Back, it's worth watching for that scene alone, even if you don't particularly enjoy the rest of the movie. But I do. It's just not on the chart. 67. Gremlins. A movie that's both funny and scary at the same time. A movie that was rated PG, and again, people take their kids to watch a movie. They just see PG. They don't pay attention to what the movie's about, and then they're offended when they get in there, and it's kind of scary. It's kind of intense for little kids. Gremlins is to me, it's an '80s classic, and I've seen it countless times. I've enjoyed it every time I've watched it. Howie Mandel does the voice of Gizmo, and of course, if you pay attention, you'll realize it's almost identical to the voice he used for Bobby in the Bobby's World cartoon, which was fantastic, which came out years after Gremlins was done. Um, Phoebe Cates is her normal, glowing, wonderful self. And of course, one of the highlights of this movie is when Phoebe Cates does the discussion of why she doesn't like Christmas and the Santa Claus and her dad stuck in the chimney, and it's a story that was played for compassion for her character, and it was played sort of as a touching moment, and it's been laughed at since, and she lampoons it herself in Gremlins 2 because it is kind of cringeworthy in parts, because it's just kind of out of nowhere. It's just sort of, yeah, so that happened. Let's move on to the next scene. Sort of like in The Room, where mom says she's got breast cancer, and then it's never mentioned the rest of the movie. It's just sort of there. It's just sort of a thing that happened, and you don't pay any attention to it. At 66, a movie we reviewed last week. It Follows. It Follows does a wonderful job of being a terrifying movie on some level, and yet it's not gory. It's relentless. Chase movies can be really, really fantastic when you feel like there's something chasing the protagonist, and they can't sit still because it's still coming for them. And you see that in the Terminator movies now. Well, it works. It Follows this kind of Terminator with some Halloween mixed in, and it's got a lot of different aspects to it. There are some inconsistencies regarding the entity that's chasing this girl for most of the movie, and exactly how it moves and what it does. But It Follows is a really solid movie. I realized that it got kind of panned by some people after it came out. You know that popular thing to do where anytime a movie has any kind of success, people can't wait to dump on it and talk about how bad it is and pull this apart and pull that apart. It drives me insane. It really does. 65. If you enjoy movies that are tragedies, The Departed is for you. The Departed refers to the fact that almost everybody in this movie is going to die. It's Martin Scorsese. It's fantastic. It's Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg's character in The Departed, along with Alec Baldwin, they steal the movie. Mark Wahlberg. There's a part in the movie where he's walking by Matt Damon's office. He knocks on the window and gives him the finger on the way by, and it is this nice subtle little thing. And after my friend at Stream and we watched it, and we would do that to each other. So every time we walk by each other, knock and flip the bird and move on, because it's this fantastic thing. And there's some great lines between Mark Wahlberg and Alec Baldwin as well, and there's a lot of violence in it. It's kind of shocking. Leonardo DiCaprio as well plays a massive role. He does a lot of screaming. It's pointed out that by various reviewers that Leonardo DiCaprio has two moods: calm and screaming, and there's no real in between. And he screams a lot in movies where maybe he shouldn't. And in The Departed, there's a lot of screaming, but you can kind of understand it. Martin Sheen's another one that's in this, does a fantastic job too. Like, there's some really, really solid acting throughout this because it's Scorsese, so of course. But The Departed is a fantastic movie if you can handle sudden outbursts of extreme violence, where it's a normal everyday scene, and you're not, and then all of a sudden, oh, he got shot, oh, they're shot, oh, okay, they're all dead, all right, okay, fine, that's what's happening here, they're all dead now. But great movie. 64. Memento. So this is a movie that's filmed backwards. You watch from the end of the movie at the start until the start of the movie at the end, and you get bits and pieces for how our main character, who we assume is a protagonist, and yet it starts where you're seeing him kill somebody, and you get to how he got there and what's happening, and it's this great story of a guy who can't form new memories. So he's got a memory that stops at the moment that his wife died, and everything since then is kind of a blur, and he's not good at creating new memories. And throughout the whole movie, it keeps you guessing because it's being filmed backwards. So it'll show you a scene, and then the next scene is what happened directly before that, and directly before that, and direct. It is a fantastically done movie. Christopher Nolan at his best. I'm pretty sure it's a Christopher Nolan movie. It's really sort of amazing, all the way through. And I like a movie that kind of messes with you. I like a movie that at the end kind of changes the whole narrative at the very close, and then you go into the closing credits going, wait, what? And this movie does that, where at the very end you're like, oh wow, no, seriously, really? And then there you go, the movie's over, and you don't really have a resolution, but you kind of do, and you're left feeling pretty bad for a couple of people, and kind of disillusioned about some other things that go on during the movie. And it's a movie that you can watch more than once, and look for the clues, that will be revealed at the end, and look for clues that you go, oh, why didn't I notice that the first time, or why did I discount that the first time? That makes total sense now. Great movie for that. 63. If you like war movies, it doesn't get much better than Saving Private Ryan. Matt Damon shows up again, right across from Good Will Hunting. So this is the Matt Damon row. Saving Private Ryan is a great story, and it has so many fantastic performances from top to bottom. It's a long movie because it's a war movie, but it's a great movie because it's accurate, and it doesn't glorify either side. You watch war movies, and a lot of the time it's okay, all the Nazis were bad and all the Allied troops were fantastic and they're all heroes. And in this movie, they blur that line. There are points where you feel bad for Nazi soldiers, and you look at Allied troops and you go, wow, really? Did he just do that? And I've watched a lot of stuff on World War II and on war in general, and people do horrible things in war. So I'm very glad that this movie depicts some of that and doesn't take the path of the Allies were always good and the Germans were always evil, because that's not how it goes on a battlefield. And I think that's true of probably almost any battlefield. And I realize there are probably some current uh, exceptions to that rule, but yeah, this movie really accurately projects things, and shows how things likely were, and I'm really glad that I don't have to worry about going to that kind of a battlefield, because I don't know how I would do psychologically with that. So it really shows you how um, that kind of that kind of war and that kind of battle. Yeah, PTSD is a thing. I don't understand why it took so long to be recognized. 62. Something a little more lighthearted, and still amazing and dramatic at the same time, and that's Field of Dreams. So again, much like Moneyball, there's baseball in it. It's not a baseball movie. It kind of is, but kind of not. Kevin Costner I think it's his best performance, and it might be James Earl Jones' best performance in his career as well. James Earl Jones steals every single scene that he's in, right from the moment he says "go away" up until the end of the movie. Um, and Moonlight Graham is a fantastic little side as well to it. I think the best part for me with Field of Dreams is that it does have a really good payoff. It does have a good story. It has the backdrop of, is he going to lose his farm as he's building this field? Like, when you're not making money as a farmer, and then you're deciding, I'm just gonna just take out one of these fields. I'm gonna build a baseball diamond out there. What for? Well, for the ghosts. Yeah, everybody's gonna think you're nuts. But it is done really well, and it's done in a way that makes you believe. part of what makes for a great movie is when it brings in a ridiculous concept and you believe in it. And Field of Dreams absolutely accomplishes that, bar none. And there's some really great moments. And then at the end, you kind of get to cheer. There's 2 or 3 moments during this movie where you get to kind of cheer and go, "Yeah, this is awesome." So, Field of Dreams at 62. 61 is going to bother people, but I put it here, and I make no apologies for Rogue One being here. Rogue One, I understand that there are a lot of Star Wars fanboys who don't like what's going on with Star Wars and what's going on with what Disney's doing. That Disney's making a lot of money and a lot of movies. And they're making a lot of movies to make a lot of money because they paid a lot of money for the right to Star Wars. Rogue One's a fantastic movie that is a lot like The Departed. Don't get attached to characters in this movie. My problem with it has always been I read, oh, the characters in Rogue One are throwaway characters. But they're not. I still remember a majority of the characters' names. I've watched the movie multiple times. It's gritty and it feels more like Star Wars. There's a feel that the original trilogy had before all of the redos and the revamps and the new audio and the new video and all this stuff got done. Um, and Rogue One has that kind of a feel. There's still some CGI in there, but it's not a lot, and it's not invasive. Rogue One tells a very simple story, and while you can debate whether or not it's a story that needed to be told, that's fine. And yes, when Princess Leia shows up, the CGI is terrible. But it tells the story well. I did have a problem with during the climax where there's 2 characters that I think legitimately could have survived. And the movie takes the role of not bothering to try and just they hug each other, and I'm like, that's the only moment in the entire movie that felt bad to me. And the only reason I felt like they did that was because then if they survived that scene, you'd have to explain why they're not in the movie that directly follows Rogue One, which is Star Wars: A New Hope. And I think, yes, these characters would have been a major part, and it would have been hard to explain why they weren't in the original trilogy, but I thought killing them off was kind of a lazy way of doing it, and it's too bad because I really liked the character Jyn Erso, and I thought there was a lot of promise there. I wasn't a big fan of Cassian. It doesn't matter. I wasn't a big fan of him. And I liked the pilot. I loved the robot. The robot was great. K2SO. And there's so much to like in the movie, and yet I understand why people kind of pick at it, which is why it's the lowest of the Star Wars movies on my list. And yet it's still ahead of some really fantastic movies. So there you go. There's another 10. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.